Today's episode of Messed Up Origins is brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/solo to get yourself a free book. What is going on, Solo fam? My name is John Solo, and once again we are diving into the messed up origin story of a classic Disney character, Tarzan. You remember Tarzan, right? Long hair, king of the jungle, wears a loincloth. He's been the star of several Disney movies. There was Tarzan, Tarzan and Jane, Tarzan 2, but did you know there was also an entire book series about the adventures of Tarzan? The first book was published in 1912 and was so popular, the author went on to write 24 sequels. We do not have the time to go through every single one of those, but fortunately the events of the movie were almost entirely based on the first book, so that's what we're looking at today. But first, let's go over what happens in the movie just in case you need a refresher. Sit back, relax, hit that like button so we can reach our goal of 3,000 likes, and enjoy. Tarzan takes place in the mid-1860s and tells the story of a man who was orphaned when he was just a baby and raised by gorillas in Africa. While he loves his gorilla family, Tarzan can't help but notice that he's different than those around him, and as a result feels insecure about his identity. When he's in his 20s, a group of explorers from England arrive on the coast of his jungle with the intent of studying the gorillas. While traveling through the jungle, one of the explorers named Jane gets into trouble with some baboons, but Tarzan saves her and she takes him back to her camp, much to the excitement of her father and the hunter named Clayton they hired for protection. Despite warnings from his leader, Tarzan becomes interested in these strangers like him, and they begin teaching him how to speak English and behave like a human. Sometime later, Tarzan ends up getting tricked by Clayton into revealing the location of his gorilla family, which he kept secret this entire time, and this leads to Clayton's crew trying to capture the apes so they can sell them. Clayton successfully kills the leader of the gorillas, Kerchak, but the rest of his thugs are defeated, and shortly after he ends up ensnared in vines while blindly attacking Tarzan and hangs himself. In the end, Tarzan is totally accepted as both one of the apes and one of the humans, and him and Jane go on to live happily ever after in the jungles of Africa. Pretty good story, right? I just watched it for the first time in years, and it's a very different movie when you watch it as an adult. I mean, the concept of a human being raised by apes is a weird one. Imagine growing up surrounded by creatures who look almost nothing like you, and then actually meeting one of your kind for the first time when you're in your 20s. That's like grade school, high school, the beginning of college, all without seeing another human. I want to say that would blow my mind, but I don't know where my mind would be if I was raised by apes. The Tarzan novel does an excellent job of explaining this idea though, and while it takes place in a totally different universe than the movie, it's surprisingly similar, just a lot more graphic. So let's start at the beginning. Like the movie, the book starts with Tarzan's parents, John Clayton II and Alice, getting stranded on the coast of Africa. In the movie, we see them abandoning ship because it's on fire, but the book explains there was actually a mutiny on board and they were forced off with some of their possessions, some food, and some tools. They managed to sort themselves out, and within a few months they've built and furnished their own cabin. Around the 2-month mark, the couple gets attacked by a wild gorilla, but Alice saves them when she shoots it in the chest. Even though they survived, Alice becomes mentally unhinged from the attack and chooses to stay inside the cabin for the rest of her days. A few months go by and she gives birth to her son, John Clayton III, and while she gets a lot of joy out of taking care of the baby, she ends up dying in her sleep on his first birthday. That same night, his father dies as well at the hands of Kerchak, the ape leader. Remember in the movie when Kala's baby dies because it wandered off and was eaten by Sabor, and then she takes Tarzan as a replacement? Something similar happens in the book, only instead of being eaten by a leopard, Kala drops the baby while she's running away from a rampaging Kerchak. It's at this time they discover the Clayton's cabin, and Kerchak kills John Clayton II. Luckily, Kala's able to rescue John Clayton III before Kerchak kills him. It's at this point she adopts him and names him Tarzan, which means white skin. Tarzan is then raised as an ape. He speaks their language, grows a strong sense of family, and understands their ways. Probably a little better than the one from the movie did at this age, but even still, he can't help but feel like an outsider when he's among the gorillas. At some point during his childhood, Tarzan discovers his parents' cabin and finds books and pictures of other humans. So in this story, he learns there's other people like him way sooner than he does in the movie. As a result, he's motivated by this and starts teaching himself to read and write using the books and pictures in the cabin. It's through his reading and teaching himself that he learns the basics of human behavior. Interestingly, despite being able to write in English, albeit with plenty of spelling errors, he can't actually speak English because he can't remember ever hearing it. I thought that was a cool detail for the author to include. As he grows older, Tarzan's skills are tested numerous times. At one point, he's attacked by a rampaging raging ape and successfully kills it. And then, for the first time ever, he's allowed to participate in the ape ceremony of Dum Dum, which involves eating the flesh of a dead enemy. Another gorilla named Old Tublot gets jealous of the attention Tarzan receives for his kill. Because remember, there's a specific power hierarchy in ape society, and Old Tublot does not want young Tarzan to climb above him. So he flies into a rage and starts attacking everyone around him, including Tarzan's mother Kala, which of course he's not going to tolerate. Tarzan takes out a hunting knife he got from his parents' cabin, and as fast as lightning, he stabs Tublot in the chest a dozen times and comes out the victor. Some more years pass by, and in that time, Tarzan continues to teach himself about humans, makes friends with the elements, learns how to fish. The dude is thriving in the jungle. He ends up having his first interaction with humans when an African tribe moves close to his jungle. He's curious about them, but they're nothing like the humans that he's learning about in his books, so he doesn't really have any interest in actually communicating with them. One day, Kala is killed by the son of the tribe's chief, and Tarzan avenges her death by killing the tribesmen and pulling pranks on the village. It's kind of funny, he'll do things like steal their weapons or throw human skulls into the middle of their camp, but since he always stays hidden, they think they're being attacked by an evil jungle spirit. And just to clarify, in case you were wondering where Tarzan is getting these human skulls, that tribe was cannibalistic and would often eat its own members. I know, I was surprised that didn't make it to the movie too. So at this point, Tarzan has made quite a reputation for himself. He's killed 2 gorillas, haunted a nearby village, and after, he even captures and skins Sabor after being inspired by his books to turn her hide into a loincloth. Only unlike the movie, where Kerchak gains some respect for Tarzan and his skills, in the book he feels threatened by Tarzan and even tries to kill him, but is ultimately defeated. Shortly after that battle, Tarzan gets attacked again, this time by the son of Old Tublot named Turkaz, and once again he survives thanks to the hunting knife. But note that I said survives and not that he wins. Turkaz manages to seriously injure him, and Tarzan travels back to his parents' cabin to recover. A little after this happens, when Tarzan's around the age of 20, is when the characters of Jane Porter, her father, and the hunter William Cecil Clayton join the scene. Also, a French naval officer named William d'Arnaud. They're stranded on the coast of Africa, and in secret, Tarzan helps them survive. Similar to the baboon incident in the movie, a lot of his help involves saving them from animal attacks by either killing the animal attacking them or throwing the person over his shoulder and swinging through the trees to bring him to safety. They're very grateful for his help, but since he can't speak English, they're having a hard time communicating with him, so as a result, the relationships don't reach that deep of a level. But remember how Turkaz injured Tarzan and got him to leave the tribe? Well, Turkaz becomes the leader of the gorillas, and a cruel one at that. Some of the apes remember Tarzan's advice before he left them, saying they should band together to dispose of any chief that's cruel. So that's what they do when Turkaz is forced out of the group. He decides he's going to start his own tribe of apes, but since he doesn't have any women and the old group won't let him near any of theirs, he kidnaps the girl he knows Tarzan is interested in, Jane. Tarzan ends up tracking Turkaz down, and after a ferocious battle, kills him and saves Jane. This is the event that causes Jane to see Tarzan in a new light and fall in love with him. You might think that's a pretty big leap to go from being fascinated by someone to being in love with them, but he did just kill a gorilla to save her life, so I'm sure there's a bunch of crazy emotions to go along with that. Tarzan and Jane spend the night together in the jungle, but back on the coast, her crew is still worried for her life since they saw her get taken away by a giant angry gorilla. They mount a rescue mission but come back unsuccessful, only to find that Jane's already been rescued and dropped off at the cabin by Tarzan. Now there's another missing member of the party, the naval captain d'Arnaud, who's been captured by the cannibalistic villagers. I know, this book is a roller coaster, right? Tarzan gets to the village just in time to see d'Arnaud being tortured by the tribe and suffering in silence. He manages to save the captain by lassoing a vine around one of the warriors' necks and yanking him up around the tree. Remind you of anything in particular? This attack scares the villagers into thinking they're once again being haunted by the evil jungle spirit, and they run away. While all this is happening, a rescue boat arrives on the shore to rescue Jane, her father, Clayton, and the rest of the crew. And because they think d'Arnaud is already dead, they leave without him. When Tarzan and d'Arnaud arrive at the camp, they're surprised and angry to see that it's been abandoned. D'Arnaud finds a letter written by Jane in Tarzan's parents' cabin, since it was right next to their camp, saying they've left Africa and will never return. Tarzan Tarzan nurses d'Arnaud back to health, and to pay him back, the French officer teaches the wild man how to speak and how to navigate using a map. This serves as inspiration for Tarzan that he can go after Jane and profess his love. He and d'Arnaud start their trek through the jungle, and within a few months, Tarzan is totally fluent in French, can function in society, and most importantly, knows the identity of his parents to be John and Alice Clayton. He's got to travel from France all the way to Wisconsin to see Jane, and they reunite in the most dramatic way possible. He saves her from a forest fire by swinging through the trees. Like I said, roller coaster. The problem is, before Tarzan can tell Jane how he feels, he finds out she's promised to marry the hunter from their trip, William Clayton. I'm not sure if you put the pieces together yet, but Tarzan, aka John Clayton III, is the cousin of William Clayton. It turns out the Claytons were a rich family, and when they died, William inherited most of their possessions since he was thought to be their only living heir. Tarzan knows he can prove he's the rightful owner of the Clayton estate and thereby strip his cousin of everything he owns, including Jane. Not that he owns Jane, but let's not get into semantics. But unfortunately, because he thinks it'll make Jane the most happy to stay with Clayton, he keeps his identity and his love for her a secret and leaves. Believe it or not, that is actually how the story ends. Not exactly the happy ending we got in the movie. But remember, after this book came out in 1912, there was high demand for more, and around 24 sequels were written. And Tarzan goes on to not only marry Jane, but also have a son with her named Jack, who was given the ape name Korak, which means the killer. Pretty cool stuff. It's kind of crazy to me that Tarzan has such an expansive story. Like 25 full-size novels? That's crazy, right? You know what's even crazier is you can get the entire first book for free when you go to audibletrial.com/solo. You can actually get any audiobook you want for free, and when you sign up through that link, you're supporting the channel. Just something to consider, you know, since it's totally free for you and helps me a lot. If you enjoyed the story of Tarzan and this video as well, I'd greatly appreciate you hitting that like button so we can reach our goal of 3,000 likes. Not only does it support the channel immensely, but it makes me feel like my work is appreciated. Also, don't forget to subscribe for new Disney content just like this every single week, and turn notifications on so you don't miss anything I upload. Share this video with your fellow Disney fans, comment your thoughts, follow me on social media, all that. I'll see you guys soon with yet another messed up origin story. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and remember, John shot first.